Let's dive into the absolute perfect storm that was the 2026 crisis on the Ontario-Michigan border. This is where garbage, high-stakes trade deals, and some really cool new tech all collided. We're going to break down how something as simple as taking out the trash escalated into a massive geopolitical showdown.
And it all starts with this number, 3.46 million tons. That's how much trash Canada was shipping to Michigan in just 1 year. For decades, this was just business as usual, no big deal. But by 2026, this massive river of refuse became the central issue in a huge international fight.
And believe me, the rhetoric got personal, and it got personal fast. By early 2026, you had leaders like Ontario Premier Doug Ford publicly taking shots at the White House. You see, this wasn't really about garbage anymore. It was about political leverage. A simple, long-standing arrangement was suddenly being used as a weapon in a much bigger trade war. And right at the heart of all this was President Trump's open hostility to the big North American trade deal, the USMCA. You know, the agreement that replaced NAFTA. His comments just threw gasoline on the fire, creating total uncertainty. And those millions of tons of garbage, they were caught right in the crossfire of potential new tariffs and even border shutdowns.
So you have to ask, how did a major province like Ontario get so vulnerable in the first place? How did they get into this jam? Well, let's unpack the history of this very unique and, as it turned out, incredibly fragile relationship.
Yeah, this problem did not pop up overnight. For over 20 years, Canada's biggest province has been trucking about a third of its waste over to Michigan. And why? Well, it's simple economics, really. It was just cheaper to pay for the gas and drive it across the border than to deal with it at home.
And the sheer scale of this dependency is just staggering when you look at the numbers. Ontario's making almost 17 million tons of waste every year, and it's exporting over 3 million of that straight to the U.S. That's over 20% of its entire waste stream. It created this huge strategic vulnerability. What happens if that border suddenly slams shut?
Now this chart is the smoking gun. It shows you exactly why this was happening. Michigan was charging a state fee of just 36 cents per ton. Compare that to a proposed $60 levy in Ontario. Seeing this enormous gap, Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer pushed for a, get this, more than 1,000% fee increase to stop the out-of-state dumping.
So you've got Michigan pushing back hard, you've got American trade policy that's more volatile than ever, and all of a sudden, Ontario is staring down a genuine existential threat. This wasn't just about finding a new dump. It was about the province's stability and its own sovereignty.
And look, this isn't just some political headache. This is a math problem with a very hard deadline. The projections in 2026 were stark. If the U.S. border closed, Ontario's own landfills would be completely full by 2034. That's a ticking clock that forces you to find a new solution, and find it fast.
So where is all this garbage even coming from? You might think it's from all of our kitchen bins, but it's not. A full 60% of Ontario's waste comes from what's called the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector. We're talking businesses, and for them, waste disposal was always just about private contracts where the lowest price always won.
But, every crisis presents an opportunity, right? This immense geopolitical pressure is actually forcing some incredible innovation. It's pushing Ontario away from that old, lazy, dump-and-forget model and towards a really high-tech, circular bioeconomy.
And this really illustrates a fundamental shift in how we think about waste. The old way, the linear economy, was just extract, use, and then dump it. And we now see that creates massive long-term risks. The future is this circular bioeconomy where you recover, you process, and you reuse. Suddenly, waste is no longer a problem you bury, it's a valuable resource that you can harvest.
Okay, so at the heart of this whole new solution is a technology called pyrolysis. Was that? Well, essentially, it lets you superheat organic waste, like wood, without any oxygen. So instead of burning and releasing all that carbon into the air, it actually transforms the waste into valuable, stable, low-carbon industrial products, like something called biocarbon.
And here is the brilliant new economic model, broken down into 4 steps. First, you hit them where it hurts. You implement a heavy $60 per ton levy on any industrial waste going to a landfill. That makes the old way expensive. Second, you create a brand new standard for clean wood waste called 905 wood. Third, you take that wood and you process it using pyrolysis. And fourth, this is the best part, you actually generate revenue by selling the biocarbon and by selling valuable carbon removal certificates. Now, this whole new model isn't just about being green. It's really about surviving in a world of tariffs and trade walls. And it's all building towards one absolutely critical deadline. And here's why all this matters so much for trade. In the crazy environment of 2026, you had to be able to prove everything. The old model of just, trucking trash across the border, it offers zero verifiable data. It's messy, it's untraceable, and that makes it a perfect target for someone looking to slap on some retaliatory tariffs. And that is exactly why new digital workflows like the 905 Wood Digital Refinery are being created. I want you to think of it like a digital passport for every single load of waste. It uses technology to create an unchangeable, permanent record, tracking that material from the moment it's created all the way to its final processing. This thing creates irrefutable proof of compliance, which is exactly what you need to get through a border audit and avoid those crippling penalties.
And all of it, is building to this one date, the mandatory joint review of the USMCA on July 1, 2026. After months and months of rising tensions, threats of tariffs, and all that political sparring, this is the day of reckoning. This is the date where the entire North American trade relationship is put on the table to be renegotiated.
Ultimately, this whole crisis shows a fascinating shift in thinking. What one nation sees as a liability, a literal pile of garbage, another can actually transform into a strategic asset. By turning waste into valuable products and, crucially, verifiable data, Ontario has a pathway to turn an environmental nightmare into a foundation for economic independence. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In a world that's busy building walls, how many other waste streams are just waiting to be transformed into treasure?